Well, thanks again. Thanks again. Thanks again for having me back at your pulpit. It's been forever, like I said, about since June. And when I was here back in June, I was here to kick off the Paulist Capital campaign that you've been hearing a ton about. Before I go any farther, want to thank you all for your very active participation in our Paulist fundraising efforts. They support not only the formation of our novices and seminarians, but also the care of our senior fathers, especially the 9 fellows who are over 90 plus, of which I have examples in this room right now. Our 2 newest novices are here visiting this weekend, so I'd like to invite Tim Wheeler and James Marquez to stand up and just say hi to everybody. Tim is from Grand Rapids, Michigan. James is a Bruin from UCLA, from Southern California. It's great to have you here on the East Coast. So thank you, brothers. Good to have you with us. Also, just across from them is Father Ed Petruka, one of our august 90-plus Paulist fathers. There he is. He's going to stand and take a bow, too. I want to thank all those who were so helpful in the campaign. I see Larry Holodak here, and I know Tanya Shebley's at home, our co-chairs of the campaign, and all the volunteers. You know, about 18% of parishioners have been involved in this campaign, leaving, my math says, a bunch of you to continue to maybe jump on board. Father Rick mentioned there's these envelopes in the back, so I'm not supposed to plug this, but I did it during the homily, so I wouldn't be listening. So there you go. Hope that you can join us. These are things you need to do, by the way, when you are a leader in any organization. Fundraising is part of the cup of suffering you are asked to drink. So when I think of James and John today and their great ambition to follow Jesus in his footsteps, I want to say, are you insane? Are you crazy? Any leader of anything over the last 18 months, whether you're the head of your household, the head of your checking account, to whatever organization or business you're a part of, you don't want to be a leader right now. It's the most impossible journey ever if you are in charge of anything in life, even your own life itself. It is a cup of suffering. So, James and John, I don't know what to say to you except to say that I'm almost at the end of my Paulist presidency, and I'm happy to report as of this moment, I have 7 months, 2 weeks, 5 days, 13 hours, and 37 minutes left in my presidency of the Paulist Fathers. There it is. I have an app that gives me joy every morning. You know, when you become a leader of a religious community and you go to the convention of all the other fellas and all the other superiors or provincials, they tell you the first meeting you go to, congratulations and condolences. It's going to be a ride. And so I think most of us who are provincials or leaders of religious orders do our utmost to push our charisms so far and so broadly to make it so that they'll never ask us to be bishops of a diocese or archdiocese. That is our goal, because being a leader of a religious order or at any religious organization is difficult. Sometimes it feels like a thankless task. Sometimes it's filled with joys and pleasures. But with anything, when you're elected to anything, whether it be third grade president or president of the United States, or my job, we will all tell you it is the getting of it, but not the having of it. That's the fun part. And so it is for James and John in their kind of adolescent exuberance. They think that they should be right there with Jesus. They were there at the Transfiguration, weren't they? They should be left and right. And when we think of who's seated at left and right hand of the Jesus, we think of the 2 thieves on the cross. We who read the gospel and kind of know the end of the story. Because to follow in Jesus' footsteps means, as we all know, we need to be baptized into his death and into his resurrection. And there is no question why the earliest baptismal fonts had 3 big steps going down into the pool, deep steps, so that you knew that you were descending to death. And there's nothing more deadly than getting placed under the water a little bit too long for your liking to get a taste of your mortality. And then to be the 3 steps on the other side, signifying the resurrection that comes. Prosperity gospel people, my friend Joel Olstein, who's on the other channel right now, is preaching the prosperity gospel. We Catholics know that that is baloney, because to follow Jesus is to share in his joys and in his sufferings. And we know as Catholics that when someone tells us that God doesn't give us more than we can handle, that they are full of baloney. Or when they say God has, this is all in God's plans, or God needed an angel in heaven right now. Again, malarkey. It's awful, it's death, it's loss, whatever it might be. Those things mean nothing. And never tell someone who is sick with cancer that it's going to be okay, that it's going to be better, because it's not. It's going to be a long road before that might actually be true. So the cup of suffering, my friends, is real. Now we could say James and John, they were 1/6 of the apostles. That means that there are 10 others that were more high-minded or more, kind of service-oriented. But they all got mad at James and John because they thought of it first. A reminder that in our culture, as much as Jesus' core of his teaching says that we are called to serve and not to be served, we all want to be number uno, number one. We are all programmed through all of our endeavors as Americans to succeed, to be the best, to be the number one, to be whatever it is. Beauty pageants, soccer tournaments, piano recitals, you name it. We all want to get the prize. And no one believes it when everybody gets the prize. That was the kind of the consolation we were giving each other. But we all know, ambition-wise, at parts in our lives, we want to be number one. Jesus, who suffered for us and suffered through the learning process of his disciples, still loved and still loves today all of us, because all of us, whoever we are, have great potential to love and to know that we are loved. Jesus hung in there with his disciples as much as they disappointed him, even after they fell asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane, when they ran away when he was being nailed to the cross. Jesus still loved them to the very end and served those who loved him from the cross itself. The very moments of his death, he was reaching out to his mother at the foot of the cross. We are all baptized into this mystery of death and resurrection, and we are all called to lead with that in mind. And what does that mean when we're called to leadership in this world today? If we are graced to be in a position where we can earn lots of resources through our endeavors, we are called to make the world a better place through that. And not just to put your kids through college and then buy the big house somewhere out on the coast. We are called to give back accordingly. We are called, when we're leaders, to lead from behind, encouraging those around with us, calling out the goodness and the talents of all those who are on our team, so we are last. And we are pleased when someone gets ahead or makes things move ahead. That's Christian leadership. It is showing up when no one else does at the middle of the night to open the door when the FDNY comes because the alarm went off and someone has to go down, and it's the guy or the lady who's in charge. You sacrifice yourself for the others. That is Christian discipleship, and the rewards of which we know. The resurrection of Jesus, by giving himself so fully, emptying himself completely, he opens a pathway for the love of God in ways untold. The disciples don't catch on until that Paschal mystery is complete. When the Pentecost moment occurs and they get the great aha, and they are connected, if you will, to the Jesus network, the Jesus consciousness, that voice in the back of your head that's inspiring you to be good news, to know you're loved, and to give it away. The Jesus network. It is what makes our lives complete. It is in that serving of one another, getting out of the way of our egos to see the beauty that is before us, that makes the world a better place. This is the discipleship that we are called to as much as James and John, knowing that we will be drinking from the cup of suffering, one of which Jesus knows all about and is there, and he has our back. My problem right now at the end of this regime, knowing I don't want to run for anything else in my life, I just want to go maybe in a small country pasture someplace else. The problem that on my end of the lifespan is fear of just mailing it in. I've got, what did I say, 200 and some odd days left. Let someone else do it. I don't have to care for the guys anymore. Catch me in the Cayman Islands. I hear there's a great spot down there. No, we are called and challenged to always be connected to Jesus. Jesus who continues to connect us through the Eucharist. And we need examples. And I have an amazing example for you today of this Jesus network at work. This is a picture of one of our Paulist fathers, Rich Andre, and he was seated by the grace of God next to Amanda at a wedding rehearsal dinner, which actually I hate to go to, but sometimes they become blessed events, and here's an example. Amanda and Rich. Amanda is the fiancée of the groom's brother. What do we care? This is why we care. While they were conversing, Rich found out that Amanda is a physician's assistant at Washington Hospital Center in Washington, D.C. And lo and behold, she was caring for our brother, Rich Colgan, 8 hours before he was intubated with COVID-19 and stayed with him until his death a week later. We were never able to be with Rich in the hospital, but Amanda was. In those last 8 hours before our brother was intubated and could no longer talk, he kept asking her in a gentle voice, with whatever oxygen he had left, about her family, about her life, about what it was like to be a nurse right now in the middle of all this craziness of COVID-19. And Amanda wanted to know more about this fella. So she went online and found a video in which Rich was talking about being a novice director. And he talked about the line from the scripture that always captivated him, that brought him to the Paulist novitiate and then ultimately to be the director of novices, the line from the scripture, "Come, follow me." And on the door of his room at the ICU, she put that quote so people would know who this was that she was caring for. Rich was teaching her about life and death and ministry to the very last moment. She was on the front line risking her life to care for him. God bless Rich Colgan. That's at least miracle number 10 of his continual, from the heavenly throne, novice director. An example of how when we seek to serve others, how we are served in return. So in conclusion, I merely offer you this final thought. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. I'd sing more, but you know me, I'm going to stop right there. Blessings.